ఆపరేషన్ కావేరీలో భాగంగా సూడాన్ నుంచి స్వదేశానికి చేరుకున్న 37 మంది తెలుగువారు ఢిల్లీ, ముంబై, బెంగళూరు విమానాశ్రయాల నుంచి స్వస్థలాలకు చేరుస్తున్న రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం. ఢిల్లీ క్యాపిటల్స్ జట్టుపై 9 పరుగుల తేడాతో ఘన విజయం సాధించిన హైదరాబాద్ సన్ రైజర్స్ జట్టు 67 పరుగులు చేసి జట్టు గెలుపులో కీలక పాత్ర పోషించిన సన్ రైజర్స్ ఆటగాడు అభిషేక్. వార్తల్లోని వివరాలు. ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ తన మనసులోని భావాలను దేశ ప్రజలతో పంచుకునే మన్ కీ బాత్ 100వ సంచిక ఈ ఉదయం 11 గంటలకు ప్రసారమవుతుంది. ఆకాశవాణి సమన్వయంతో దూరదర్శన్ ఛానళ్లు మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమాన్ని ప్రసారం చేస్తాయి. ఈ కార్యక్రమ తెలుగు అనువాదం వెనువెంటనే దూరదర్శన్ సప్తగిరి, యాదగిరిలో ప్రసారమవుతుంది. 2014 అక్టోబర్ 3న ప్రారంభమైన ప్రధాని మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమం నిరంతరాయంగా కొనసాగుతూ నేటికి 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ పూర్తి చేసుకోనుంది. ప్రధాని 100వ మన్ కీ బాత్ ను పురస్కరించుకుని దేశవ్యాప్తంగా రాజ్భవన్లలో ప్రత్యేక కార్యక్రమాన్ని నిర్వహిస్తున్నారు.
आकाशवाणी और दूरदर्शन के सभी चैनलों पर आप भी माननीय प्रधानमंत्री के मन की बात के समय एपिसोड का हिस्सा बन सकते हैं। इसके लिए आप अपने सुझाव पोस्ट बॉक्स नंबर 111 आकाशवाणी दिल्ली को भेज सकते हैं। इसके अलावा नमो ऐप या माई गॉव के ओपन फोरम में पोस्ट कर सकते हैं। तो याद रखें,
ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ తన మనసులోని భావాలను దేశ ప్రజలతో పంచుకునే మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమం 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ కార్యక్రమాన్ని విజయవాడలోని రాజ్భవన్లో నేడు ప్రత్యేకంగా ప్రదర్శించనున్నారు. ఈ కార్యక్రమాన్ని గవర్నర్ జస్టిస్ అబ్దుల్ నజీర్ పలువురు ప్రముఖులతో కలిసి వీక్షించనున్నారు. ఈ కార్యక్రమానికి ప్రధాని గత 99 ఎపిసోడ్లలో ప్రస్తావించిన రాష్ట్రానికి చెందిన సివి రాజు, శ్రీనివాస్ పడకండ్ర, సుభాష్ చంద్ర, రామ్ భూపాల్ రెడ్డి, సాయి ప్రణీతులు ప్రత్యేక ఆహ్వానితులుగా రాజ్భవన్ కు హాజరు కానున్నారు. వీరితో పాటు పద్మ అవార్డు గ్రహీతలు అన్నవరపు రామస్వామి, సంకురాత్రి చంద్రశేఖర్, డాక్టర్ అబ్బారెడ్డి నాగేశ్వరరావు, సుమతి రామ్మోహన్ రావు, యడ్లపల్లి వెంకటేశ్వరరావులు కూడా మన్ కీ బాత్ 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ ను రాజ్భవన్ లో వీక్షించనున్నారు. ప్రధానమంత్రి మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమంపై ప్రముఖ మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ వ్యవస్థాపకులు బిల్ గేట్స్ ప్రశంసలు కురిపించారు. ఈ మేరకు ఆయన ట్వీట్ చేశారు. స్వచ్ఛత, ఆరోగ్యం, మహిళల యొక్క ఆర్థిక సాధికారత ఎల్లప్పుడూ అభివృద్ది లక్ష్యంగా సాగుతున్న మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమం అన్ని వర్గాలకు ప్రేరణగా నిలిచిందన్నారు. ప్రధానమంత్రి మన్ కీ బాత్ 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ నిర్వహిస్తున్న నేపథ్యంలో ఆయన అభినందనలు తెలిపారు. ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ 100వ మన్ కీ బాత్ నేపథ్యంలో ప్రముఖ సైకత శిల్పి సుదర్శన్ పట్నాయక్ ఇందుకు సంబంధించిన సైకత శిల్పాన్ని ఏర్పాటు చేశారు. ఒడిశాలోని పూరి సముద్ర బీచ్ లో ఏర్పాటు చేసిన సైకత శిల్పం ఎంతగానో ఆకట్టుకుంటుంది. ప్రధాని ఆకాశవాణి మాధ్యమం ద్వారా మన్ కీ బాత్ ప్రసంగిస్తున్న చిత్రంతో పాటు చుట్టూ రేడియోను పొందుపరుస్తూ 100వ మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమానికి ఆయన స్వాగతం పలికారు. ఈ సైకత శిల్పం ప్రజలను విశేషంగా ఆకట్టుకుంటోంది. ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ ప్రతి నెలా ప్రజలతో తన భావాలను పంచుకునే మన్ కీ బాత్ 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ ను చిత్తూరు జిల్లా ప్రజలందరూ దూరదర్శన్ ద్వారా వీక్షించాలని బీజేపీ చిత్తూరు జిల్లా ప్రధాన కార్యదర్శి చిట్టిబాబు కోరారు. చిత్తూరులో పార్టీ మీడియా ఇన్ఛార్జ్ రామభద్రతో కలిసి ఆయన మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ దేశ ప్రజల మనోభావాలను తెలుసుకుంటూ మన సంస్కృతి సాంప్రదాయాలను ప్రపంచవ్యాప్తంగా చాటి చెప్పే గొప్ప కార్యక్రమం మన్ కీ బాత్ అన్నారు. 100వ ఎపిసోడ్ ను ప్రజలందరూ వీక్షించేందుకు వీలుగా పలుచోట్ల ప్రత్యేక ఏర్పాట్లు చేసినట్లు వివరించారు.
ఏర్పాటు చేయబడినటువంటి కార్యక్రమం మన్ కీ బాత్ ఈ 199 ఎపిసోడ్లలో చాలా ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి అనేక రాష్ట్రాల నుంచి ఎలివేట్ చేసేటువంటి అంశాలంతా కూడా ప్రసంగించడం వారు జరిగింది. 30 ఏప్రిల్ 2023వ తారీఖున ఆదివారం 11 గంటల నుండి 12 గంటల వరకు దూరదర్శన్లోను ఇతర ఛానల్లోను అదేవిధంగా ఆల్ ఇండియా రేడియో ద్వారా కూడా ఈ కార్యక్రమం ప్రసారమవుతుంది. ప్రపంచం ఎదురు చూస్తున్నటువంటి అనేక కొత్త అంశాలను 100వ ఎపిసోడ్లో ప్రధాని మన ముందు ఉంచడం జరుగుతుంది. కాబట్టి ఈ దేశంలో ఉన్నటువంటి ప్రతి భారతీయుడు జరిగేటువంటి మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమాన్ని వీక్షించండి.
ఆదివారం ఉదయం 11 గంటల నుంచి 12 గంటల మధ్య ఈ యొక్క కార్యక్రమం జరుగుతుంది. కావున దేశంలో ఉన్నటువంటి అనేక రంగాలను సృష్టిస్తూ వారిలో ఉన్నటువంటి గొప్పతనాన్ని ప్రజలకు తెలియజేసేటువంటి కార్యక్రమే ఈ మన్ కీ బాత్ కార్యక్రమం. అదేవిధంగా మన ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ సంబంధించి చిత్తూరు జిల్లాకు సంబంధించి పలంనేరు వ్యక్తులను కానీ కాళహస్తి వ్యక్తులను కానీ వారి యొక్క ప్రత్యేకమైన దీన్ని గుర్తించి వాళ్ళ గురించి మాట్లాడడము, అదేవిధంగా దేశంలో మనకు తెలియనటువంటి అనేక విషయాల్ని రైతులకు సంబంధించి కానీ యువతకు సంబంధించి కానీ మహిళలకు సంబంధించి కానీ ఇలా అనేక రంగాల్లో ఉన్నటువంటి వ్యక్తుల్ని మనందరికీ పరిచయం చేసేటువంటి కార్యక్రమం ఈ మన్ కీ బాత్ అయినటువంటి కార్యక్రమం. కాబట్టి ప్రజలందరూ కూడా ఈ యొక్క 100వ మన్ కీ బాత్
గంగా పుష్కరాల సందర్భంగా
कुछ बेहतर किया है, लेकिन अब इस प्रयास को हमें ब्लॉक लेवल पर लेकर जाना है. इसमें प्राइवेट सेक्टर समेत सभी स्टेक होल्डर्स की भागीदारी महत्वपूर्ण है.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also stressed on further extending help to the players.
आने वाले समय में स्क्वॉश वर्ल्ड कप, हॉकी एशियन चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी, एशियन यूथ एंड जूनियर वेट लिफ्टिंग चैंपियनशिप, ऐसे आयोजनों में आपके मंत्रालय और आपके विभागों की तैयारियों की परीक्षा होनी है. ठीक है, खिलाड़ी अपनी तैयारी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अब स्पोर्ट्स टूर्नामेंट्स को लेकर हमारे मंत्रालयों को भी अलग अप्रोच से काम करना होगा.
Throwing light on the Chintan Shivir, Prime Minister underlined the need to discuss future goals and also review the previous conferences.
कोई भी चिंतन शिविर चिंतन से शुरू होता है, मनन के साथ आगे बढ़ता है और क्रियान्वयन पर पूरा होता है. यानी फर्स्ट कम्स रिफ्लेक्शन, देन रियलाइजेशन एंड देन इम्प्लीमेंटेशन एंड एक्शन. इसलिए इस चिंतन शिविर में आपको भविष्य के लक्ष्यों पर विमर्श तो करना ही है, साथ ही पहले की कॉन्फ्रेंस की भी समीक्षा करनी है.
More than 100 invitees from various states, union territories and the Ministry of Youth Affairs are attending the unique two-day Chintan Shivir and are putting forward their views and ideas on making the nations fitter and making India into one of the biggest sporting powers in the world. DD India.
Israel marked its Independence Day, though marred by protests. Up next, we get you a detailed report.
Israel kicked off annual Independence Day celebrations on Tuesday evening. Military jets and helicopters flew in formation over Israel on Wednesday as the country marked its 75th Independence Day.
Today is especially meaningful to me because 2 years ago we made Aliyah, our family, from America, and we wanted to be a part of the Jewish nation. So this is Israel Independence Day, and Israel is a place where we can thrive and express our truest selves as Jews.
These celebrations for the 75th anniversary of Israel's 1948 independence took place this year while the country has been mired in weeks of unprecedented nationwide protests, primarily in response to a plan by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's nationalist religious coalition to overhaul the judiciary. As dignitaries and honored guests held the annual torchlighting ceremony in Jerusalem, protesters gathered in Tel Aviv waving blue and white Israeli flags that have become a symbol of the weekly protests against the judicial overhaul plans, now entering the 16th week.
This could be like the very last Independence Day as we know it. Next year might be completely different. There might be like different rules or restrictions, and I think when they try to change the country, no Independence Day is the same. You can't just go about your day as if it's the same. You have to make a stand, especially today.
First of all, I'm fighting for the bit of democracy that we do have here, which is still a very, very big lot that I do want to say. And I always want to remind people of the other.
The government and its supporters say the changes are needed to rein in activist judges who have intruded aggressively into the sphere of parliament and the executive, but agreed last month to pause the plan to allow for more consultation. For many Israelis, the standoff has opened up profound questions about their country that go beyond the makeup of the Supreme Court and the power of the executive to override its decisions. DD India.
Veteran freedom fighter, jurist and politician Mohammad Shahabuddin was sworn in as the 22nd President of Bangladesh on Monday in Dhaka. Parliament Speaker Shireen Sharmin Chaudhry administered the oath of office at an impressive ceremony in the historic Darbar Hall of Banga Bhavan in the presence of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Chief Justice Hassan Foez Siddiqui, cabinet members and other dignitaries. Shahabuddin's family members, including his wife, Dr. Rebecca Sultana, and son, outgoing President Hamid's family members, attended the function. Cabinet Secretary Mohammad Mehboob Hussain conducted the program. From Asia, we now turn focus to America in our segment, America This Week. The U.S. presidential race for 2024 is becoming red hot. The incumbent in the White House has announced his bid to return to the seat of power in Washington. Joe Biden says he wants to protect democracy, keeping imaging nuts at bay, and also finish his job. But there's a lot of chatter about whether he should still run at all, given his age and other issues, and that his predecessor Donald Trump is the frontrunner among the rival Republicans. A report ahead.
The United States presidential poll heats up. The week saw President Joe Biden filing his candidature for a second White House term in 2024. Biden filed documents on Tuesday. 80 years old, Biden made his announcement in a slickly produced video released by his new campaign team, in which he declares that it is his job to defend American democracy. It opens with imagery from the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by supporters of former President Donald Trump. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said on Tuesday that if re-elected, President Joe Biden would serve for 8 years. Jean-Pierre tweeted this after declining to respond if the president intended to serve the full term if his 2024 run for the White House is successful. Joe Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, is the front-runner in the Republican race. The 76-year-old ex-president is currently under much scrutiny as he faces allegations of rape, defamation, hush money scheme, having falsified business records, among others, and is entangled in a series of lawsuits. He made his presidential bid last November, but experts say that even though the combatants are the same, if Trump can win his party's 2024 nomination, voters shouldn't expect a retread of their earlier contest.
It'd be unprecedented in the sense that neither Gerald Ford nor Jimmy Carter nor George H.W. Bush ran for president after they had lost their first re-election bid. And so this would be the first time that it's happened in recent memory. The difference this time around would be that the burden would be on Biden to defend his record, the same way the burden was on Trump to defend his record in 2020. The advantage, of course, that Biden has is that while he can't campaign against Trump now, he can campaign against Trump's previous presidency.
While Biden's approval rating is relatively low, his aides are confident he can beat Trump again. Apart from incumbent President Biden, Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump, Nikki Haley are among others who wish to run in the 2024 race. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
The race to White House is intensifying in the U.S. with President Joe Biden announcing his bid to return to the White House. But concerns have mounted on his age, as around half of the Democrats say that President Joe Biden is too old to run again. Joe Biden, already the oldest president in U.S. history, would be 86 at the end of his second term.
The 2024 race for the White House could be uncharted territory in the United States, which celebrates youth, but where millions of Americans, including presidents, now keep working well beyond the traditional retirement. U.S. President Joe Biden gears up for a bruising re-election battle. Leader faces growing questions, even among Democrats, about whether his age will limit his ability to campaign and to handle the rigors of the White House in a potential second term.
He's going to be 82 when should he be reelected, and if he serves out the entirety of a second term, he'll be closer to 90 than he will be to 80. And this raises lots of concerns, justifiable concerns in my view, about his ability to fulfill all the obligations of the office, concerns about his health, his ability to actually finish out a second term, and what that means for the possibility of a President Harris stepping in. There are lots of concerns that are raised in that space. I think we're going to have two very old white men as the front runners in a country that's increasingly diverse and whose average age is less than half, right, than their ages. So, like, what to do here again? I think Kamala Harris could be an asset, a political asset potentially for Biden. At least, she's decades younger than Biden.
Some Texas voters are expressing concern over President Joe Biden's age following his re-election bid announcement.
He's too old. He needs to hang it up. He was too old before and he's way too old now. We need someone younger, but preferably a Republican.
Honestly, I think he's a little old for that because, he is 80 years old. You never know what's going to happen in the span of that time. So that's honestly my opinion about it.
Ronald Reagan was 77 when he left the White House, but President Joe Biden, who turns 80 on November 20, would be 86 by the time a second four-year term ends, should he win it. His leading potential Republican opponent, Donald Trump, would be 82 when he left office if he won in 2024. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
U.S. journalist Tucker Carlson, the host of Fox News' most popular show, abruptly left the network days after the TV channel paid a huge settlement to end a defamation case. Carlson was the best-known name on Fox News channel, hosting a primetime evening show that won fierce loyalty among the broadcaster's right-wing viewers. A week ago, Fox agreed to pay more than $700 million to settle a lawsuit with the company that manufactures voting machines over Fox's airing of false claims that the 2020 U.S. presidential election was rigged in favor of Joe Biden.
Fox News Media and its top-rated host Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways less than a week after parent company Fox Corp settled for $787.5 million a defamation lawsuit in which Carlson played a starring role. The outspoken Carlson embraced conservative issues and delivered his views with a style that made his primetime show called Tucker Carlson Tonight the highest-rated cable news program in the key 20 to 54 age demographic on the most watched U.S. cable news network. Carlson's next move and the reason for his departure are unclear, but Fox News said in a statement that Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. Carlson became Fox's most popular personality after replacing Bill O'Reilly in Fox's primetime lineup in 2016. He has also consistently drawn headline for controversial coverage, including most recently airing tapes from the 6th of January Capitol insurrection to minimize the impact of the deadly attack. Carlson joined Fox News as a contributor in 2009 and became a co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend in 2012. He began hosting his primetime show in November 2016. In 2021, Fox announced a multi-year deal with Carlson to provide content for its Fox Nation streaming service. DD India.
More than a dozen suspected gang members were stoned and burnt alive on Monday in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. The violence had started before dawn when gang members burst into several residential areas of the city, looting homes and attacking people.
Unrest in Haiti continues. The security situation has deteriorated further in recent months, with routine gunfights taking place between police officers and the gangs. Bloody turf battles have left hundreds dead and thousands displaced. Violence spilled onto the streets on Monday after locals lynched at least 10 suspected gang members in Port-au-Prince. According to police, the group of armed bandits had been traveling in a vehicle when they were lynched and later set alight.
We don't ask for a lot. The gang members have invaded the area. We want the police to go ahead and confront them. We are on our own. We have nothing. At about 2 in the morning, they invaded the area. We want the police to come and help us. Nothing more.
Gangs have grown in strength since the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise, with residents caught in the middle as large portions of the capital and much of the countryside have become lawless. Criminal groups control about 80% of the metropolitan area, where some 200 gangs operate with impunity, according to estimates. Haiti's government and top United Nations officials have called for an international force to support the police in their struggle against the gangs. DD India.
And now we get you Oceania this week. Amid the soaring interference of China in the South China Sea, Australia on Monday released its latest defence strategic review, wherein it emphasized the importance of expanding relationships and practical cooperation with the key allies, including India and Japan. The review noted that Delhi has a significant position, especially in the Indian Ocean region, and suggested Canberra strengthen cooperation with the world's largest populated nation.
A major defence review in Australia said that the country will speed up efforts to buy longer-range missiles to counter the growing threat from China. The report warned that the country can no longer be protected by its geographic isolation in the missile age. The government will spend some $19 billion to deliver the immediate recommendations. The 110-page report is described as the biggest overhaul of Australian defence since World War II.
This represents a document for today and tomorrow. It is the most significant work that's been done since the Second World War, looking in a comprehensive way at what is needed. It demonstrates that in a world where challenges to our national security are always evolving, we cannot fall back on old assumptions. We must build and strengthen our security by seeking to shape the future rather than waiting for the future to shape us.
The Australian Prime Minister said that this review report will help promote peace, stability and prosperity in the region and the world.
The recommendations of this review will underpin our work bolstering relationships with our international partners and promoting peace, stability and prosperity in our region and our world. At its core, all of this is making Australia more self-reliant, more prepared and more secure in the years ahead.
The Defence Strategic Review comes amid increasing military tension in the region over China's stance towards Taiwan, which it has repeatedly vowed to take by force if necessary. Chinese Navy has also established a major presence in the South China Sea, claiming part of it as its own territory, contrary to international law. Australian Defence Minister Richard Marles said that review recommends that Australia's armed forces switch focus from land-based armour to longer-range strike capability, with munitions built in Australia. He added that this review and the government's response to it would reshape the Australian Army.
This review and the government's response to it does provide for a reshaping of the Australian Army, but in a way which gives it a much greater strike capability and a much longer range strike capability, but also a much greater ability to operate in a littoral environment. Ultimately, what the DSR recommends and what the government is going to put in place will give rise to an army with a much more focused mission, with a much more enhanced capability.
But China said that Australia was hyping up baseless Chinese threat theories and using them as an excuse to boost its military strength.
What I want to emphasize is that China has always pursued a defensive national defense policy. We are committed to maintaining peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific and the world, and we do not pose a threat to any country. We hope that some countries would stop using China as an excuse to boost its military and do not hype up baseless Chinese threat theories.
Australia will also fast-track plans to acquire the land-based high-mobility artillery rocket HIMARS system used by the Ukrainian army against Russian forces. DD India.
And now news from Africa in Africa this week. The leader of a Kenyan cult told his followers the world would end on April 15th and instructed them to starve themselves to be the first to go to heaven. 89 followers of the Good News International Church, which was based in Shakahola Forest in eastern Kenya, are known to have died. Authorities have recovered 81 bodies from shallow graves since Friday, while 8 cult members were found alive but later died. On Wednesday, dozens of people came to identify the remains of their relatives thought to have starved themselves to death in hope of going to heaven after joining the self-proclaimed Good News International Church led by Patrick McKenzie.
These are family members of the victims of the Kenyan hunger cult. On Wednesday, dozens of them were at a morgue in Malindi, identifying the remains of their loved ones. The morgue has been filling up rapidly since authorities started digging up human remains last week. Followers of the self-proclaimed Good News International Church are thought to have starved themselves to death in hopes of going to heaven. Stephen Mueti says he lost his wife and 5 children to the cult. He's among the many who have yet to identify their loved ones.
My children are dead. I know that for sure. The young men who told me about my children had been living in the forest since 2021. They told me the names of my children and they did not even know me. They told me my children had been starved to death.
Dozens of bodies have been found, and authorities say the death toll could rise further. The cult's leader, Paul McKenzie, was arrested earlier this month following a tip-off. On Tuesday, Kenya's Interior Minister said at least 3 more people had been rescued alive.
Government of Kenya will do whatever it takes to make sure that we convict Mr. McKenzie and all those who helped him perpetrate his heinous crimes.
And now we get you a sports scan. Wimbledon has moved to ban Russian flags from this summer's tournament as officials continue to take a strong stance on the country after their invasion of Ukraine. While rules have been relaxed to allow Russian stars to compete as neutrals, organizers have updated their regulations to prohibit signs or symbols of support for either Russia or Belarus.
The All England club said that flags of Russia and Belarus will be banned from this year's Wimbledon Championships, while several players from the two countries have already signed personal declaration that will clear them to compete as neutrals. Wimbledon announced last month that it had lifted its ban, which prevented the athletes from the two countries playing the last year following Russia's attack on Ukraine. Wimbledon chief executive Sally Bolton said that grounds entry terms and conditions have been updated for this year's tournament.
So our grounds entry terms and conditions have been updated for this year, and that will prohibit any Russian or Belarusian flags being brought into the grounds, as well as any other symbols or signs of support for the war or the two regimes. So as I talked about earlier, our security arrangements are amended each year alongside a threat and risk assessment, if you like. And so the gate teams will be well briefed on what can and can't come into the grounds. So we would hope the latter point you make wouldn't happen, in the sense that a flag would be unfurled. But if it were, then our grounds entry terms and conditions are really clear.
Speaking at the club's pre-tournament spring media conference, club chairman Ian Havitt said that the U-turn had been the hardest decision for his 4-year in the job.
I now turn to the issue of Russian and Belarusian players. Our announcement on 31st March, made after careful and deep consideration, sets out the factors which informed our decision and why, taking all circumstances into account, we consider these to be the appropriate arrangements for Wimbledon this year. Arrangements being made with the full support of our UK government and the international stakeholder bodies of tennis. I can assure you it was a very difficult decision in exceptionally challenging circumstances. It does not lessen in any way whatsoever our total condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I will touch later upon ways in which we will continue to demonstrate our support for the people of Ukraine.
Wimbledon chiefs have revealed that special arrangements have been made for the tennis players from Ukraine in a boost ahead of the 2023 event.
Ticket offer to Ukrainian refugees who had resettled in our local boroughs of Merton and Wandsworth. We are pleased to share that we will donate to Ukrainian relief £1 for each ticket holder at the championships this year. This will result in a contribution of more than £500,000. We will also again invite 1,000 refugees to join us for a day at Wimbledon. Working with our Merton and Wandsworth councils and the British Red Cross, this offer would include tickets, transport, food and drink for the day. For Ukrainian players, the All England Club and the LTA will be funding the accommodation cost of 2 rooms for all main draw and qualifying players and their team members.
Wimbledon and other British grass court tournaments stood alone in barring Russian and Belarusian players such as former world number 1 Daniil Medvedev, Victoria Azarenka last year. The decision resulted in ranking points being stripped off from the events and the Lawn Tennis Association being hit with huge fines by the ATP and WTA. To compete this year, Russian and Belarusian players must agree to compete as neutrals, not to make statements supporting the war or the regimes involved, and not to receive funding from either nation and state-supported businesses. Wimbledon will meet all of the accommodation costs of Ukraine players during the tournament and all of the build-up events in the British grass court season, while £1 will be donated to Ukraine relief efforts for every ticket sold, amounting to around £5 lakh. Other announcements included a continuation of play on the middle Sunday, which came into effect last year, and the extension of a trial allowing players to receive coaching from their groups in the stands. Sports Desk, DD India.
BCCI has announced a 15-man squad for the much-anticipated World Test Championship 2021-23 final. Rohit Sharma will lead the squad against Australia in the final, which will be played from June 7 to 11th at the Oval in London. More importantly, Ajinkya Rahane has made a comeback to the squad after a series of fine performances in domestic cricket and the ongoing IPL. All-rounder Shardul Thakur has also been picked.
The Board of Control for Cricket in India has announced a 15-man squad for the much-anticipated World Test Championship 2021-23 final. Rohit Sharma will lead the squad. The final between two sides is slated to be played from June 7 to June 11 at the Oval in London. Veteran batter Ajinkya Rahane has returned to the Indian side after 15 months. He last featured in the South Africa Test Series in January 2022. Rahane's form for Chennai in IPL, albeit in an entirely different format, is believed to be the biggest reason behind his comeback. The other major reason is the absence of middle-order batter Shreyas Iyer and wicket-keeper batter Rishabh Pant. Rahane scored 634 runs for Mumbai in Ranji Trophy 2022-23 cycle, hitting 2 centuries, including a double hundred in 7 matches. He has been in imperious form for Chennai Super Kings in IPL 2023, scoring at a strike rate of close to 200. Apart from Rahane, senior pro KL Rahul has also made it to the 15-man squad after being stripped of vice-captaincy and a place in the squad in the final 2 tests of the Border Gavaskar Trophy against Australia. The spin-bowling all-rounders Ravindra Jadeja, Ravichandran Ashwin and Akshar Patel have held on to their places in the squad. It is, however, unlikely that the 3 of them will play together. In fact, if the conditions are favourable for seamers, then the management could opt for Shardul Thakur as the 4th pacer, which will mean only one among Ashwin, Jadeja or Akshar will play as a spinner. In the absence of Jasprit Bumrah, who is also ruled out because of a back injury, the onus of leading the pace attack will fall on Mohammad Shami and Mohammad Siraj. Battle for the 3rd seamer will be between veterans Jaydev Unadkat and Umesh Yadav. The Indian squad is like this: Rohit Sharma, captain; Shubman Gill, Chiteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, KL Rahul, KL Bharat, Ravichandran Ashwin, Ravindra Jadeja, Akshar Patel, Shardul Thakur, Mohammad Shami, Mohammad Siraj, Umesh Yadav and Jaydev Unadkat. Earlier in the month, Australia also announced their squad for the World Test Championship final, bringing back the likes of Mitchell Marsh and retaining struggling David Warner. The Australian squad is like this: Pat Cummins, Scott Boland, Alex Carey, Cameron Green, Marcus Harris, Josh Hazelwood, Travis Head, Josh English, Usman Khwaja, Manish Labuschagne, Nathan Lyon, Michelle Marsh, Todd Murphy, Matthew Renshaw, Steve Smith, Michelle Stark, and David Warner. Earlier, Australia topped the WTC Championship table with 66.67%, while India ended second with 58.8% to make it to the clash. India qualified for the World Test Championship final for the second time in the tournament's history, while Australia, who topped the table, reached their maiden final. Rohit Sharma's men sealed the berth after beating Australia 2-1 at home, setting up a blockbuster final against Pat Cummins' side. Sports Desk, DD India.
And now we take a look at the events apart from the news headlines, which in fact made it to the headlines.
Peruvian archaeologists have discovered a mummy believed to be over 1,000 years old, with some of its skin and hair still intact, and the body is believed to be that of an adolescent. The mummy was found at the archaeological complex of Cajamarquilla near Lima's outskirts. Archaeologists are still uncovering new finds at Cajamarquilla. From ceramic objects found near the body, archaeologists estimate the mummy is between 1,100 to 1,200 years old and could belong to the Lima or Ichma civilizations. A Thai conservationist, Wachiradol Pangpanya, is working tirelessly to conserve the red-headed vulture, also known as Asian king vulture. Though the bird plays a crucial role in the ecosystem as a scavenger, as it limits the spread of diseases by helping dispose of animal carcasses. Its population significantly declined due to hunting and modifications to its natural habitat. The chick that is being taken care by the Thai conservationist hatched in March. It's the first to be bred in Asia and only the second in the world, and Wachiradol and his colleagues are doing everything possible to ensure it thrives. Ensuring the future of the species is no small feat, as Wachiradol now lives, eats and sleeps outside the vulture's nursery room in Nakhon Ratchasima Zoo in northern Thailand. He feeds it 4 times a day with different types of raw meat like that of rabbit, deer, chicken and rat to simulate its diet in the wild. After feeding, the chick does some sunbathing so it receives warmth and the vitamin D it needs for its physical and behavioral development. Toy maker Mattel has introduced its first Barbie with Down syndrome in a bid to make its famous doll range more inclusive. Mattel said it had worked with the National Down Syndrome Society in the United States to make the doll, which has a shorter frame and longer torso than its other Barbies. He added that the new doll's face is also a rounder shape and has almond-shaped eyes, smaller ears, and a flat nasal bridge. The doll is dressed in a puff-sleeved frock adorned with butterflies and flowers in yellow and blue colors associated with Down syndrome awareness. Hundreds of Venetians gathered in St. Mark's Square to form a giant rosebud to celebrate the festival of Boccolo. As part of the traditional festival, men in Venice give a blooming red rose called Boccolo by Venetians to their romantic interests to show their love. The tradition comes from the legendary unlucky love story between Maria Partecipazio, the daughter of Venetian nobleman Orso, and a composer Tancredi. 6 highly rare first edition collections of William Shakespeare's plays will go on show in London next week in what auction house Christie's says will be the largest display of the works in Britain. The exhibition, which marks the 400th anniversary of the publication of Shakespeare's first folio in 1623, runs in Christie's London showroom from May the 2nd until May 26th. The copies will then go back to their owners. The editions were compiled by Shakespeare's friends and published 7 years after his death. They contain 36 of the 37 plays he wrote, arranged for the first time as comedies, tragedies and histories. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And now we leave you with images that stayed in news this week. Till we meet next, take good care of yourselves. Namaskar.
Hello and welcome to the Sports 360 Degree, where you bring you the latest updates, highlights and analysis from the world of sports, from the biggest international competitions to the local games and everything in between. We have got you covered. Whether you are a die-hard sports fan or just love to keep up with the latest sporting news, this is the show for you. So sit back, relax and let's dive into the exciting world of sports. But first up, the cover story you are tracking this week. Six-time Asian Boxing Championship medalist Shiva Thapa, Commonwealth Games bronze medalist Mohammad Husamuddin and the Asian silver medalist Deepak Boria are some of the leading names in the Indian squad for the World Boxing Championships to be held in Tashkent from April 30 to 14 May. The gold medalist will walk away with a prize money of $2 lakh. Silver medalists are to be given $1 lakh, and both the bronze medalists will be awarded $50,000 each. The 2023 Men's World Boxing Championships will be held in Tashkent from 30th April to 14th May 2023. Six-time Asian Championship medalist Shiva Thapa and 2019 Asian Championship silver medalist Deepak Boria will lead the Indian squad. Shiva, who won a World Championship bronze in Doha in 2015, will be looking to add another medal to his name. He will be representing the country in the 63.5 kg category. Deepak, who has been one of the most improved boxer in the recent times, will be carrying the country's hopes in the 51 kg flyweight category. Deepak announced his arrival on the global stage in 2021 when he defeated the 2016 Rio Olympics gold medalist and 2019 world champion Shakobuddin Zorev of Uzbekistan at the Stranza Memorial Tournament. The Indian team will also have experienced campaigner and 2022 Asian Championship bronze medalist Mohammad Husamuddin. He will box in the highly competitive 57 kg category at the showpiece event. Tokyo Olympian and 2019 Asian Championship silver medalist Ashish Chaudhary will also be representing the country at the event for the second time and will be keen to add another major medal to his name. Govind Sahni, who recently won silver at the Stranza Memorial Boxing Tournament, will be showcasing his skills in the 48 kg category. Meanwhile, 2021 World Youth Boxing Champion Sachin Sivaj will be representing the India in the 54 kg bantamweight category. He will be eager to continue his impressive form to add to his medal tally. Young boxer Varinder Singh 60 kg, Akash Sangwan 67 kg, Nishan Dev 71 kg and Sumit Kundu 75 kg, who had won the gold medal at the national championships earlier this year, will be donning the Indian jersey in their respective categories. The quartet had represented the country at the 2021 World Championships and will be looking to use the experience to be among the medal winners this time. Harsh Chaudhary, who hails from Rajasthan, will be making his debut at the World Championships in the 86 kg category, while national champion Naveen Kumar and Narendra Berwal will be seen competing in the 92 kg and 92 plus kg categories respectively. The gold medalists will walk away with a prize money of $200,000. The silver medalists are to be given $100,000 and both bronze medalists will be awarded $50,000 each. Sports Desk, DD India. Now shifting focus to cricket, BCCI announced a 15-man squad for the much-anticipated World Test Championship final. Rohit Sharma will lead the squad against Australia in the WTC final, which will be played from June 7 to the 11th at the Oval in London. More importantly, Ajinkya Rahane has been made a comeback to the squad after a series of fine performances in the domestic cricket and in the ongoing Indian Premier League 2023. All-rounder Shardul Thakur has also been picked up.
The Board of Control for Cricket in India has announced a 15-man squad for the much-anticipated World Test Championship 2021-23 final. Rohit Sharma will lead the squad. The final between two sides is slated to be played from June 7 to June 11 at the Oval in London. Veteran batter Ajinkya Rahane has returned to the Indian side after 15 months. He last featured in the South Africa Test Series in January 2022. Rahane's form for Chennai in IPL, albeit in an entirely different format, is believed to be the biggest reason behind his comeback. The other major reason is the absence of middle-order batter Shreyas Iyer and wicket-keeper batter Rishabh Pant. Rahane scored 634 runs for Mumbai in Ranji Trophy 2022-23 cycle, hitting 2 centuries, including a double hundred in 7 matches. He has been in imperious form for Chennai Super Kings in IPL 2023, scoring at a strike rate of close to 200. Apart from Rahane, Senior pro KL Rahul has also made it to the 15-man squad after being striped of vice-captaincy and a place in the squad in the final two tests of the Border Gavaskar Trophy against Australia. The spin-bowling all-rounders Ravindra Jadeja, Ravichandran Ashwin and Akshar Patel have held on to their places in the squad. It is, however, unlikely that the three of them will play together. In fact, if the conditions are favourable for seamers, then the management could opt for Shardul Thakur as the fourth pacer, which will mean only one among Ashwin, Jadeja or Akshar will play as a spinner. In the absence of Jasprit Bumrah, who is also ruled out because of a back injury, the onus of leading the pace attack will fall on Mohammad Shami and Mohammad Siraj. Battle for the third simmer will be between veterans Jaydev Unadkat and Umesh Yadav. The Indian squad is like this: Rohit Sharma, captain; Shubman Gill, Chiteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, KL Rahul, KS Bharat, Ravichandran Ashwin, Ravindra Jadeja, Akshar Patel, Shardul Thakur, Mohammad Shami, Mohammad Siraj, Umesh Yadav and Jaydev Unadkat. Earlier in the month, Australia also announced their squad for the World Test Championship final, bringing back the likes of Mitchell Marsh and retaining struggling David Warner. The Australian squad is like this: Pat Cummins, Scott Boland, Alex Carey, Cameron Green, Marcus Harris, Josh Hazelwood, Travis Head, Josh English, Usman Khwaja, Manesh Labuschagne, Nathan Lyon, Michelle Marsh, Todd Murphy, Matthew Renshaw, Steve Smith, Michelle Stark and David Warner. Earlier, Australia topped the WTC Championship table with 66.67%, while India ended second with 58.8% to make it to the summit clash. India qualified for the World Test Championship final for the second time in the tournament's history, while Australia, who topped the table, reached their maiden final. Rohit Sharma's men sealed the berth after beating Australia 2-1 at home, setting up a blockbuster final against Pat Cummins' side. Sports Desk, DD India.
Wimbledon has moved to ban Russian flags from this summer's tournament as officials continue to take a strong stance on the country after their attack on Ukraine. While rules have been relaxed to allow Russian players to compete as the neutrals, organizers have updated their regulations to prohibit signs and symbols of support either Russia or Belarus. The All England club said that flags of Russia and Belarus will be banned from this year's Wimbledon Championships, while several players from the two countries have already signed personal declarations that will clear them to compete as neutrals. Wimbledon announced last month that it had lifted its ban, which prevented the athletes from the two countries playing the last year following Russia's attack on Ukraine. Wimbledon chief executive Sally Bolton said that grounds entry terms and conditions have been updated for this year's tournament.
So our grounds entry terms and conditions have been updated for this year, and that will prohibit any Russian or Belarusian flags being brought into the grounds, as well as any other symbols or signs of support for the war or the two regimes. So, as I talked about earlier, our security arrangements are amended each year alongside a threat and risk assessment, if you like. And so the gate teams will be well briefed on what can and can't come into the grounds. So we would hope the latter point you make wouldn't happen, in the sense that a flag would be unfurled. But if it were, then our grounds entry terms and conditions are really clear.
Speaking at the club's pre-tournament spring media conference, club chairman Ian Havitt said that the U-turn had been the hardest decision for his 4 year in the job.
I now turn to the issue of Russian and Belarusian players. Our announcement on 31st March, made after careful and deep consideration, sets out the factors which informed our decision and why, taking all circumstances into account, we consider these to be the appropriate arrangements for Wimbledon this year. Arrangements being made with the full support of our UK government and the international stakeholder bodies of tennis. I can assure you it was a very difficult decision in exceptionally challenging circumstances. It does not lessen in any way whatsoever our total condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I will touch later upon ways in which we will continue to demonstrate our support for the people of Ukraine.
Wimbledon chiefs have revealed that special arrangements have been made for the tennis players from Ukraine in a boost ahead of the 2023 event.
Ticket offer to Ukrainian refugees who had resettled in our local boroughs of Merton and Wandsworth. We are pleased to share that we will donate to Ukrainian relief £1 for each ticket holder at the championships this year. This will result in a contribution of more than £500,000. We will also again invite 1,000 refugees to join us for a day at Wimbledon. Working with our Merton and Wandsworth councils and the British Red Cross, this offer would include tickets, transport, food and drink for the day. For Ukrainian players, the All England Club and the LTA will be funding the accommodation cost of 2 rooms for all main draw and qualifying players and their team members.
Wimbledon and other British grass court tournaments stood alone in barring Russian and Belarusian players such as former world number 1 Daniil Medvedev, Victoria Azarenka last year. The decision resulted in ranking points being stripped off from the events and the Lawn Tennis Association being hit with huge fines by the ATP and WTA. To compete this year, Russian and Belarusian players must agree to compete as neutrals, not to make statements about the war or the regimes involved, and not to receive funding from either nation and state-supported businesses. Wimbledon will meet all of the accommodation costs of Ukraine players during the tournament and all of the build-up events in the British grass court season, while £1 will be donated to Ukraine relief efforts for every ticket sold, amounting to around £5 lakh. Other announcements included a continuation of play on the Middle Sunday, which came into effect last year, and the extension of a trial allowing players to receive coaching from their groups in the stands. Sports Desk, DD India.
BCCI announces the annual central contract for the India women's team. Harmanpreet, Mandana and Dipti in top grade, and Washington Sundar has been ruled out of the remaining IPL 2023 season after sustaining an injury. And in football, Barcelona secures a financial deal worth 1.45 billion euros. This and more in this weekly sports roundup.
The Board of Control for Cricket in India announced the annual contracts for Indian senior women's team for the 2022-23 season on Thursday, with Captain Harmanpreet Kaur, Vice Captain Smriti Mandhana, as well as Dipti Sharma being put in Grade A. Renuka Thakur, Jemima Rodriguez, Shefali Verma, Richa Ghosh and Rajeshwari Gaikwad are put in Grade B, while Meghna Singh, Devika Vaidya, Sabineni Meghna, Anjali Sharwani, Pooja Vastrakar, Sneh Rana, Radha Yadav, Harleen Der and Yastika Bhatia are put in Grade C. In a huge blow to Sunrisers Hyderabad, all-rounder Washington Sundar has been ruled out of the remaining season of the Indian Premier League due to hamstring injury. Washington recently regained his form by claiming 3 wickets in an over against Delhi Capitals in their team's last match. Sundar also made valuable contribution of 24 runs with the bat, but Sunrisers failed to claim a win. Talking about team standings then, Sunrisers Hyderabad are currently placed at the 9th spot on the points table with just 2 wins out of 7 matches, and this latest blow can pose a tough challenge for the struggling team. FC Barcelona secures a financial deal worth 1.45 billion euros that will enable the club to renovate its iconic but outdated Camp Nou stadium and its surrounding after having renegotiated the initial terms. Barcelona added that they signed the agreement with 20 investors including Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. The Spanish club are set to pay back investors in progressive tranches after 5, 7, 9, 20 and 24 years with a flexible structure including a grace period. This means Barcelona will finish repaying the debt 6 years earlier than previously agreed after renegotiating what was initially a 35-year deal approved in a referendum of club members in 2021. Tottenham Hotspur have sacked interim coach Christian Stellini after they suffered a 6-1 humiliation at Newcastle United that put the London side's top 4 hopes in jeopardy. Assistant coach Fran Masson will take over head coach duties with immediate effect while the club continues to look for a permanent manager alongside their search for a director of football following Fabio Paratisi's resignation. The Italian authorities will impose stadium bans on 171 Juventus fans found to have chanted racist abuse at Inter Milan striker Romelu Lukaku during a Coppa Italia semi-final earlier this month. Lukaku was subjected to abuse during the first leg at Juventus before, during and after the penalty he scored to earn Inter a 1-1 draw. The player's representative said, The police did not specify the length of the bans that the fans would face for the offense. They were identified using video footage from the stadium. The police findings will be passed on to the soccer authorities for possible further action. FIFA has received 4 bids to host the Women's World Cup in 2027. Brazil and South Africa have submitted bids, while Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany have launched a joint expression of interest. The United States and Mexico have put in a combined bid to stage the tournament. Countries have to submit their full bids by 19th May. The hosts are set to be chosen by the FIFA Congress public voting on 17 May 2024. Girona striker Tati Castellanos became the first player to score 4 goals in one game against Real Madrid in La Liga since 1947 in his side's 4-2 triumph. Castellanos, on loan from MLS club New York City FC, scored 2 goals each in both halves to secure Girona an impressive victory over Carlo Ancelotti's side. Chelsea defender Reece James and midfielder Mason Mount will miss the rest of the season due to injuries. James has been ruled out with a hamstring injury, while Mount has been sidelined with an abdominal problem, although he has an outside chance of returning for the last game of the season. Chelsea are at risk of their worst domestic league finish in nearly 30 years. Chelsea lost their 5th successive game since the return of Frank Lampard, as Brentford won at Stamford Bridge to strengthen their position in the Premier League's top 10. Odisha FC won their first silverware as they beat Bengaluru FC 2-1 to lift the Super Cup title on Tuesday. Clifford Miranda side rode on Diego Mauricio's brace to defeat Bengaluru FC at the EAMS Stadium in Kozhikode. Bengaluru FC made one change to the side that started the semi-final as Jayesh Rane replaced the injured Javi Hernandez. Odisha remained unchanged from their last 4 win over Northeast United. Sports Desk, DD India.
The United Kingdom and France's sports minister have insisted that Russian and the Belarusian athlete must never compete as neutrals as recommended by the International Olympic Committee because they could still be funded by their governments. The IOC sanctioned Russia and Belarus after Moscow attacked Ukraine in February 2022, but last month recommended that their athlete be allowed to return to the international competition as neutrals. Britain and France's sports minister have highlighted potential breaches of neutrality from Russian and Belarusian athletes because they could still be funded by their governments. The International Olympic Committee sanctioned Russia and Belarus after Moscow attacked Ukraine in February 2020, but last month recommended that athletes from 2 countries be allowed to return to international competition as neutrals. Several sports federations have taken steps to readmit them as neutrals, but Britain's Cultural Secretary Lucy Fraser said that the absence of a reference to state funding in the recommendation was a serious concern. The IOC recommendations say athletes with a Russian and Belarusian passport or those contracted to their military cannot compete, but makes no mention of funding despite sanctions on their governments.
This regime does not deserve to see its athletes line up on the starting blocks of races or stand on podiums during medal ceremonies as representatives of their countries. Athletes directly funded by their states to compete in sports competitions who would not be present at those events without that support are de facto representatives of those states. They are only there by virtue of being funded by, trained by, selected by, supported by the Russian state. Firstly, there is no reference anywhere in the recommendations to state funding, which I have said is a breach of neutrality. That issue is simply too fundamental to be ignored, and it strikes at the very heart of what neutrality is. Secondly, the provisions set out on military and national security agency links are currently minimal, especially when we know that the links between state, military, sport in Russia and Belarus are root and branch.
French Sports Minister Amélie Castra added that IOC still had open very tangible and basic issues that needed to be addressed ahead of the Paris 2024 Games.
What is the position the IOC intends to take when it comes to athletes who are funded and financed by the Russian or Belarusian state, or those who are sponsored or benefiting from financial support from entities with links with Russia or Belarus? In taking steps towards seeking neutrality, how does the IOC envision the procedure for selecting athletes, a procedure which is rigorously independent from Russian and Belarusian powers? And what does this procedure look like? It's up to us, officials who are responsible and accountable to public opinion. The IOC must make us understand what this model of neutrality means and what its viability is in the context that we are experiencing.
The athletes to put pressure on Putin. And the only way to do that is to stop them participating in any way whatsoever in these international events. And we need to be firm on this. As an organisation destined, designed to protect human rights and democracy, if we don't do that, then we are failing in our duty.
The IOC is to finalize decisions on the participation of the Russian and Belarusian athletes at a later date. Russia has condemned the West for what it says is an unjustified attempt to politicize sports for geopolitical gain. Sports Desk, DD India. Kevin De Bruyne scored twice as Man City defeated league leaders Arsenal 4-1 to take control of the Premier League title race. While the defending champions remain second in the standing, Arsenal's lead was cut to 2 points after the match, with City having 2 games in hand. In what was billed for the weeks as a likely title decider, City were superb from the first whistle, with De Bruyne and Erling Haaland terrorizing Arsenal's defence.
Manchester City wrestled control of the Premier League title race from Arsenal with a 4-1 thumping in the top-of-table clash on Wednesday, to the thrill of manager Pep Guardiola, who said destiny was finally in his team's hand. The hosts were in complete control for almost the entire match, with the goals largely provided by Belgian midfielder Kevin De Bruyne, who scored twice, and assisted defender John Stones for the other. Arsenal scored a consolation goal in the 86th minute through a centre-back Rob Holding.
Really good. Congratulations to all the players, staff, backroom staff. An important game, not decisive, but really important. We played really good from the beginning until the end. I know against which opponent we played, and still they are top of the league. I know it can be naive for what I'm saying, but the reality is we are 2 points behind. Of course, we got 2 games in hand, but still they are there. But today is a day like we play really good.
Guardiola's side are just 2 points off the top with 2 games in hand, and can take the lead with a victory on Sunday at Fulham. And their recent form suggests they will. They are unbeaten in 17 matches in all competitions out of 14 wins and 3 draws. Guardiola said the next 3 games will dictate a lot.
But of course, the most important thing is our destiny is in our hands. So today winning Arsenal will be in their hands, and now it's in our hands. And when you arrive at the end of the season, when whatever happens, it doesn't matter. It's our performance. To win the games, it depends on us. This is the best way to approach the last 6-7 games that they still 7. I think so. So still we have.
Kevin De Bruyne scored twice, and Erling Haaland also found the net to claim the record for most goals in a 38-game Premier League season with his 33rd strike of the campaign.
Yes, but you know the football, I said again, so the game belongs to them, so I didn't teach them how they find each other. So football, there are more natural things that happen than the people can expect. The manager were involved in that. So, and at the end, so all the time, like Kevin has the ball, Erling knows that he can run and give it, and the opposite side as well. So it happened many times. So Kevin is a master of an assist with Erling or without Erling, and Erling has scored goals all the time with Kevin or without Kevin. But being together, of course, when the teams like they press so high and we regain that balls with the space behind, they are so dangerous, and we use it.
Arsenal proved no match for City in a game that always looked likely to have a major say in determining who could be crowned champions. Mikel Arteta's team has led the way for much of the season, but never recovered from De Bruyne's 7th-minute opener at Etihad Stadium. Aaron Ramsdale produced a string of fine saves to keep Arsenal in the game until John Stones headed in a second for City in first half stoppage time. Any hopes of an unlikely comeback were ended 9 minutes into the second half when De Bruyne scored his second of the match.
Well, the analysis is clear. The better team won the game. They were probably at their best, especially in the first half, and we were nowhere near our level. And when that happens, the gap becomes too big, and in the first 30 minutes, all the basic things that you have to do against an exceptional team, in terms of competing, in terms of win doers, in terms of understanding what the game requires, we didn't do it, and we got punished, and we could have been punished even more.
When manager Mikel Arteta was asked if they must win their remaining 5 games, he said, "I don't know what is going to be required."
I don't know what's going to be required. For sure, what we have to do first, lift the players up, because they suffered tonight, and it was a difficult one to swallow, and lift them up tomorrow and get doing everything that we've done so far so well in the next match to earn the right to win it. That's where we have to start right now.
It is the third time City has beaten Arsenal this season, including a victory in the FA Cup, and it extends its winning sequence against the Londoners to 8 games. Manchester City also chasing the treble, having booked their berths in both the FA Cup final and Champions League semi-finals. Sports Desk, DD India.
So that's all in this edition of the Sports 360 Degree. Before we wrap up, we leave you with the stunning visuals of the ultra marathon in the Sahara Desert. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.
Traditional medicine is widely used and increasingly relevant in the world today. Yet, it has been around for millennia. At a time when we were more in balance with our environment and in harmony with nature, we began looking into its healing powers to cure our aches and pains and discover our own remedies. Our understanding of traditional practices began to grow. Now over 80% of the world's population use traditional medicine. It's also the foundation for many modern medicines and practices. Some 40% of the approved pharmaceutical products in use today come from natural substances like tree barks and plant roots. So why don't national health strategies fully take all this into account? To answer these and other questions, we welcome the World Health Organization's new Global Center for Traditional Medicine. A bold new vision that starts in Jamnagar, Gujarat in India, but has a truly global reach. A center to support evidence and data, sustainability and innovation, bringing together the latest knowledge and technology to advance our understanding of methods already in use by billions of people. Catalyzing ancient wisdom and modern science has never been more needed as we strive towards our global health objectives to keep the world healthy and safe, to serve those in the most vulnerable situations and promote good health and well-being for everyone. Let's take a bold new look at this most ancient and most modern practice. Welcome to WHO's Global Center for Traditional Medicine.
G20 नए विचारों की परिकल्पना के लिए और सामूहिक एक्शन को गति देने के लिए एक ग्लोबल प्राइम मूवर की तरह काम करें। वैश्विक विकास महिलाओं की भागीदारी के बिना संभव नहीं है। भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की थीम वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर में पूर्ण रूप से समाहित है।
Welcome, change makers. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Toys and games are intrinsic part of childhood, but for a long time, quality toys meant the ones imported from abroad. But that is changing now. Thanks to favorable policy decision, Indian toy industry is breaking away from the dominance of imported toys. Today, let's talk about Make in India in toys and games. For many of us, toys and games defined our childhood, our first memory of engaging with the world around us. Today, Indian toy manufacturers are scaling up production to meet the growing domestic and international demand. Our change makers are taking this positive trend to the next level. From using environment-friendly raw materials such as neem wood to reviving ancient old Indian games, our change makers are creating the best ecosystem for our children to play and learn. Our change makers are transforming the playful world of toys and games with unique offerings that are safer and fun way to get introduced to human values and Indian traditions. Our first change maker is Ariro Toys. When the co-founders Nisha and Vasant had a baby girl in 2016, the idea of Ariro Toys was also born. They looked for wooden teethers but found the market had limited options and most of the teethers were being imported. So they started making toys themselves with the help of carpenter. They used neem wood to make teethers. Their friends who were parents adored the concept and asked them to make more for their little ones too. As Nisha and Vasant's daughter grew older, so did her need for new toys. Ariro has a vision for toys that are minimal but with a purpose. Overwhelming toys confuses the child and are nothing but a decorative item in most households. Traveling across the world, the founders developed deep understanding of wooden toys and the huge gap in the Indian market, a market where 80% of toys were being imported from China. They engaged local artisans from villages to make wooden toys. The artisans have unique skill sets. The founders of Ariro help them with market knowledge and regular income. Ariro wants to be every child's first toy. Our next change maker is Toying. Founded by Karthik Talwar and Simon Jacob in 2016, Toying presents a series of thoughtfully designed toys, games content to help parents develop emotional intelligence in kids in a fun way without preaching. Toying toys in playful manner address behavioral issues in kids like low attention spans, reluctance to eat, anger issues, showing empathy, interacting with strangers and others. The products by the startups such as board games, outdoor toys, craft kits and party games are designed based on collaboration, Indianness and innovation. The toys and games are designed to help develop social and emotional intelligence in kids through play. For example, a rock art game encourages children to paint a rock with a kind message for someone to find. Anger Slayer teaches healthy mechanism to deal with anger. Initial years by Team Toying were spent on research design and testing the products with teachers, psychologists and parents. Today, Toying has a unique and comprehensive range of emotional intelligence toys and games. Our third change maker is Krida Games. Krida means play in Sanskrit. Krida is an organization working to research and revive the rich culture of traditional games of India. Based in Chennai, Krida was founded by Vinita Siddhartha in 2002. 2 decades later, Krida is a vibrant brand focusing on delivering the best of Indian traditional games and games designed to be global in quality and Indian in spirit. Colorful handcrafted game pieces and throw pieces, exquisitely screen-printed canvas boards and other accessories beautifully capture the essence of traditional games. The team at Krida works tirelessly to research and test every game before it goes into the market. Games are carefully captured and documented by tapping into the memories of senior citizens and elders who are storehouses of our nation's culture. Ancient games carved on floors of temples and monuments are documented and studied, surveyed to piece together the roots of play. Krida uses these traditional games as means for learning and development and is fun for everyone from school students to corporate professionals.
What an amazing world of toys and games, isn't it? Time now to meet our change makers and learn more about their work, vision and toys. Let me welcome Vasant Tamilaselvan, founder Ariro Toys, Karthik Talwar, founder Toying, and Vinita Siddhartha, founder Krida Games. We saw your inspiring work in the world of toys and games. Warm welcome to Changemakers. First, I'd like to learn from you, how do you see the trend of growing demand and interest in Made in India toys and games? What are the factors driving this trend? What is the role of policy reforms, out-of-the-box thinking by entrepreneurs? What would you say? Vinita ma'am, if I could come to you first.
I think it's part of a growing trend where Indians feel more confident in who they are, a lot more pride in who they are, where they come from. And it's not just the toy industry, you see it in the textile industry, you see it in the kind of holidays people are taking, going to places in India. You see it in the kind of tourism that's happening. You see it in the craft. There's so much more pride in who we are as Indians. And I think many factors have contributed to this. Our movies have been accepted worldwide, our music, A.R. Rahman, so many things. And I think this growing trend has had its impact across industries. And I think that's one of the key reasons the toy industry is also seeing an uptake. And there's only this realization, I think also that it's not just about using toys that are generic. It's no longer a one size fits all necessarily. I want something that's unique to my culture for my children to play with, or, either it could be the game or the material, which I feel is rooted in my own tradition. And parallelly, I think non-Indians are looking to India more, looking to India to see what we have to offer. More people are looking. I mean, it was always, the Ravi Shankars and the yogis, but now I think people are more aware that India has a lot more to offer than just Bollywood. I mean, there's toys, there's textiles, there's food, so this growing uptake in confidence with Indians and regard and respect for India, I think, is what has contributed to this.
Right. Vasant, if I can come to you, how do you interpret this growing interest, demand for toys, games made in India?
So pre-COVID, right, like we had more than 90% of the toys being imported from various other countries. With the right intervention of the government policies like 200% cap on the duty and BIS in place, we have uptick. And as what I'm seeing is, as IT and pharma put India on the world map, toy will be the next industry to do that. And something like green revolution. Right now we are in the toy revolution. Good that we are all startups or legacy brands. Everybody is in the right time at the right place. That's how we look at it, and that's the hope we have.
Right. Karthik, how do you see this trend, the manner in which you've engaged with it, the manner in which your startup benefited from it?
Vinita ma'am and Vasant already spoke about two critical aspects which have kind of spurned this entire trend. One is the fact that there is a growing sense of pride and demand for anything Indian, especially toys, and that's kind of extended to textiles, etc. as well. And the fact that the policy changes have kind of come in at the right time, especially during the COVID period, which is kind of a very hard period for the entire industry. And I think the third aspect, which is kind of also helped a lot, is availability. There are people outside the metros also who are looking at a different experience, a new kind of toy for their child, because the understanding has kind of permeated beyond just the metros. And brands like Amazon, Delivery, even Swiggy for that matter, which is now allowing startups to kind of leverage on their delivery network using something called Swiggy Mini. This has helped us in a long way as well. I mean, if you look at our overall product mix sometime in 2018 or even pre-COVID, we were largely a metro brand or maybe a metro plus Bangalore, Hyderabad kind of a brand. But now that shift is there to almost a 50-50 split, where almost 50% of the offtake is in the smaller cities like Aurangabad, like a Hubli, even places in the Northeast, they've kind of now started growing. So that trend is definitely there, where even the, I'd say the semi-urban India is also now kind of looking out for these different experiences. That aspiration is now permeated beyond just the metros.
Right. Let's now talk about your individual enterprises. If we first talk about Ariro Toys, Vasant, if I can come to you, it's beautiful how your journey into the world of toys started with your daughter. But what attracted you to wooden toys? It's interesting because they're also part of our traditions. You know, we've seen wooden toys in the past. Tell us about your story.
Yeah, so you rightly pointed out, we started because of my daughter. And my wife was a Montessori teacher, and she just designed 2 toys, and we wanted to identify safe materials, where infants tend to put each and everything into their mouth. So immediately which popped up was wood, and neem wood specifically, because our ancestors used to brush our teeth, and it has an innate nature of antibacterial and antifungal. So we chose neem wood as a primary material. That's how Ariro was born. Even today, neem wood is being the primary materials for the smaller toys, wherever people put, the toys into the mouth. We are focusing on early childhood, that is 0 to 3 years, because 80% of the brain development happens during this period. So we primarily focus on those aspects. And we also designed a few bigger toys like Learning Tower, Jungle Gym, Piclet Triangle, etc. We spotted in COVID, the children has to stay home, and they have so much of energy to channelize. And electronic is not the right, equipment for this age. So we designed consciously these toys to channelize their energy, meanwhile creating purposeful play for them. That was the whole idea of Ariro, and it also, digital is a democratic platform for us to launch our products and tell our stories. We use digital D2C as a primary distributor channel, and we send over 1 lakh units so far.
Right. So in sort of reviving the tradition of wooden toys, Vasant, you're engaging local artisans, as we learnt about in your story. How are their lives changing, engaging with your enterprise? Tell us about that aspect.
So when you travel across India, there is around 17 toy clusters across India. And there's kind of skills these guys, as a part of our exercise, we have traveled over the globe. And the kind of skills these toy artisans have got, you don't find it anywhere in the world. And the kind of products they are creating is whimsical. But only problem we saw is connecting them to the modern designs, and the innovations had to be brought in, and the distribution channel has to be brought in. So that way we are the bridge now. And right now we have over 90 artisans across the country we are working. And very soon we have identified 1,000 other artisans. Soon, 3 years down the line, we will be onboarding them as well.
Right. Karthik, if I can come to you, and if you talk about toying. Now, toying makes a variety of toys and games. Indianness and innovation in many ways defines the kind of work that towing does. Tell us about your journey from idea to enterprise.
Sure. So honestly, it kind of the inception was similar to Vasant's, where my partner Simon, so he had 2 daughters. He was not very happy with the kind of toys that were available in the market, let's say sometime in 2013, 2014. And which is when we kind of started looking at what can we do to build toys that are more from an Indian nature, and also they can be more meaningful than just being a toy for the sake of being play. So the entire credo that we follow is play makes us better, which is the fact that for a child, playing is the kind of, especially for an early child, similar to what Vasant said, anybody who's say 3 years onwards, play is the primary format of learning for them, and which is why any toy that we want to kind of create, while we wanted to be innovative and we wanted to have a certain Indianness to it, we also want to make sure that there is some value that is being transferred to the child, whether it be a sense of nostalgia, where we created this entire range called Toystalgia, which is toys that you and I would have played with, toys like a Lagori, toys like a Pittu, toys like a Gilli Danda, so that the child and the parent can actually spend time bonding, because the parent also, again, because of that inherent sense of nostalgia, will spend time with the child. Similarly, there's an emotional quotient learning range that we have, which talks about helping children to, deal first of all, identify different sets of emotions, and then how to deal with it, how to deal with an anger, how to deal with, mistrust, how to deal with anxiety at a certain point in time. So that again is like I said, that learning is something that we feel is very integral to each and every toy that we kind of put out.
Right. A little more on that aspect, Karthik, developing social, emotional intelligence. If you could also, with the help of an example of what toys, games that you make, help us understand how the child is also learning and developing while playing with the toys.
Correct. So I'll give you an example of 2 of our best-selling toys in that range. So one is called Anger Slayer. So if you look at the overall anger spectrum, or if you look at the overall emotional spectrum, there are 9 core emotions, which then translate into 18 sub-emotions, and which can then translate into a further 27 sub-emotions. So anger per se, while it is a core emotion, there are different degrees of anger. And so the Anger Slayer is actually structured as a board game, where the child is given different instances, and he then has to kind of understand that based on this instance, what degree of anger am I going to display here? Because for a child who's at an early age, especially a child who's not had too much of peer contact, especially during COVID, their anger modulation is at times, something that needs to be worked on, right? They're not able to decide or to be able to understand what level of anger or discontent do I show in a particular situation. So that's how the board game works. It provides them with multiple situations. So it allows them to figure out how do I respond to this situation, and it also helps them in exploring different calming techniques. So things like stand on one leg and breathe. Now, this is a very simple yoga technique, but for the child, it's an interesting activity to do. So this is one coping mechanism that they're taught as a part of that board game. Similarly, there are multiple coping mechanisms so that they can understand, what is this emotion that I'm feeling, and then how do I kind of deal with it. So this is one example called Anger Slayer. There's another board game called Snakes and Manners, which is similar to Snakes and Ladders, but here it kind of reinforces good manners versus bad habits, again via play.
Right, that's amazing. Vinitha, if we can talk about Krida Games, it's really fascinating how Krida Games is born out of years of research into ancient traditional Indian games. But what did it mean for you to sort of rediscover them for the 21st century?
So I think, to me, and much like the others on the panel, it started with my children. Except it was not just my children, it was my grandmother as well. And it was 2 generations separated by 80 years. And my granny did all my babysitting while I worked. So, and I found that when she started teaching the children the old games, they were having a jolly good time at her place. So it just became a way of bonding with my grandmother. It started off me understanding more games, talking to people. I would go tell her, so-and-so told me about this game. She'll say, oh yeah, I've forgotten that. And it went on from there. I'm basically a journalist by profession, and my curiosity got piqued. And the fact that people were forgetting, my granny had forgotten many of the games. So, the effort to document them started, research them started. And then I said, okay, if you're going to document it and research it, we need to put it back into play. And frankly, when I started Krida, I never looked at a business. The idea was to make 50 pieces of about half a dozen games, sell a few, give the rest, and then move on with my life. But we did sell out in the first week. I was completely ill-equipped to be an entrepreneur. I'm listening to people saying they've traveled all over the world to research it. I'm like, oh God, I did none of those things. I've been learning on the job. It's been 20 years, a lot of learning, and started at a time when there was no social media. Email was just about making its way in, and people were getting used to email. Most people didn't have mobiles. So it was tough going, but been a fun and interesting journey.
Right, and part of your research, we learned, Krida talks about games that have been carved on the floors of temples, monuments, and your research also helps you sort of extract meanings from those games. They, I'm sure, reveal a lot about the culture, traditions, way of life of ancient India. Could you share some anecdotes? What do these games reveal about our past?
So initially when I started, it was just about play the games. But then the more I studied them, I realized there's far more to the games. Krida believes that the most important thing with our games is to have fun. But then there is an essence beyond that. So started doing a lot of research on this. And as you said, it started with documenting games we found in temples and monuments. I've been traveling, personally and professionally, and documenting these. And the more you see, the more you start understanding. In fact, just a month ago, I've published a book called Life Lessons from Traditional Indian Games. It's called Just Play. It's been published by Rupa Publications. And this is kind of a culmination of a lot of these learnings. So let me share an example with you. There's a game called the Tiger and Goat game, which is played pretty much in different versions across India. And you have tigers and you have goats. And the tigers try to kill the goats, and the goats try to surround the tiger so the tiger doesn't move. It's an incredibly wonderful strategy game. What I realized as I was playing this game is, so you take chess on the one side and you take the tiger goat game on the other side. Both are strategy games, but as different as chalk and cheese. So in chess, both players have the same number of game pieces, both have the same aim, and all the pieces have the same moves. Whereas in the tiger goat game, the two players have different goals. One tries to kill the goat, the other tries to surround the tiger. The number of game pieces are different. So these are what are called hunt games. And what to me is very fascinating about a hunt game is that in chess, you will often sacrifice a piece to put yourself in a better position. Now, chess is the game of kings and zamindars. And you'll see marble chessboards and ivory chessboards. But the tiger goat game is the game of the peasant and the community. And in this game, you will never sacrifice a piece to get stronger. So it's two sociological models where the good of the all is greater than the good of the individual. And on the other side, every member of the community needs to be protected in order to win. So these are the kinds of things that I was able to extract. And this is a lot of the work that we're doing now.
Right, that's some amazing insights. Also, Vinita, the games that you sort of rediscovered are not just games an end in itself, but also a means of a lot of learning, whether it's subjects like mathematics or leadership skills. Tell us about that aspect. I mean,
children, young people, people of all age groups engaging in these games? What have they got to learn from it?
See, I think to me, what is fascinating about traditional games is people played across the board. I mean, everyone played, and they're so elemental, anyone can play. I just told you I came back from the park, and there we had a lady, an old lady who had come to the park for a walk, and this little boy who, you know, obviously not very well off, raggedy shoes. The lady looks very sophisticated, very, very smart pair of, workout pants. And they're sitting down and she's teaching this young boy how to play. And to me, this is the best part of the game. Everyone plays. Age, language, background, socioeconomic status. Nothing matters. You can all play. So we've always played across the board. I've always said Krida was never just for kids. It was for all ages. And we have been doing more and more work on anchoring how these games can be applied in early childhood learning or in teaching mathematics, working with a lot of specialists on this. And a large component has been on life skills itself, leadership, team building, goal setting, decision making. So a lot of, we have worked with trainers who have been working with corporate houses. We ourselves have worked with a lot of different kinds of groups other than selling the games. Because the thing with Krida is we started at a time when there was no social media. So a lot of awareness had to be built. So we got into this model of conducting events. And we've done all kinds of events. We worked with schools, we worked with old age homes, we worked with corporate houses. And through these events, we have tried to apply these core principles and understand how best it works in these various spaces. And that's been a very exciting journey.
Right. On that note, thank you very much, Vinita, Karthik, Vasant, for joining us on Changemaker, sharing your stories. Our best wishes to your respective teams. It was great engaging with our change makers. Our childhood defines our world. How we play, what we play with, to a great extent determines the kind of adults we grow up to become. In that sense, we all owe a thank you to our invisible toy makers. When you buy Indian toys and games, you support local entrepreneurs, local artisans. That makes you a change maker too. Till we meet again, namaskar.
Our guest today on this special episode of The Journey.
ये जो बेस माननीय प्रधानमंत्री बना रहे हैं,
you are born to make a difference. Your program says it's a journey. It's the startup India. Do not go abroad. 10 more years.
75 years into India's vibrant democracy. This clearly is a story that needs to be unfolded. Please watch The Journey, Indian parliamentarians in conversation with Shaina NC.
Very good morning. Welcome to another edition of News on the Hour. Over the next 60 minutes, it's your first comprehensive look at all the big events of the day. Our big focus is going to be on Prime Minister's 100th episode of Mann Ki Baat, taking stock of updates from the Russia-Ukraine crisis, also getting updates on the evacuation process in Operation Kaveri, taking a look at how the World Chess Championship has progressed as we head into the tiebreaker. All this and lots more this Sunday morning over the next 1 hour with me, Anil Thomas. Let's get started with the big headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's radio address, Man Ki Baat's 100th episode to be aired today. The entire network of All India Radio and Doordarshan to broadcast this iconic radio address in Hindi and regional languages. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's program Man Ki Baat goes global. 100th episode to be cast live at the UN headquarters in New York. India's permanent mission at UN says get ready for a historic moment. High Commission of India in London to host a special screening of Man Ki Baat. Countries rush to get their nationals out of violence in Sudan before the end of an agreed ceasefire. India continues evacuation under Operation Kaveri. Another batch of 365 Indians reached New Delhi from Jeddah late last night. Thank government and the Indian Air Force for evacuating them from conflict in Sudan. Yet another new shelling reported in Ukraine's Donetsk region as a Russian drone hits Meletrovinica village with several people wounded, nearly 5 residential buildings damaged. In a drone attack in eastern Ukraine, Donetsk remains close to the front line of Russia's war with Ukraine. In the United States, 5 dead in Texas shooting, armed suspect on the loose with police still looking for the suspect who used an AR-15 style rifle in the shooting. And in sports, Indian shuttler pair of Satvik Sairaj, Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty create history, become the first Indian doubles pair to reach the final of a Badminton Asia Championship in the men's section. The final to be played later today. Good morning. Welcome to News in Detail now in News on the Hour. Let's begin with the top story that we are talking. Prime Minister hitting a century today as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's flagship address, Man Ki Baat, first aired on October 3rd, 2014, is turning 100 today. Ministry of Culture has planned to celebrate the occasion in a momentous way through state-of-the-art projection mapping showing at 13 iconic locations, which includes the ASI monuments located across the country. Let's bring you glimpses of the live projection mapping at the Gateway of India in Mumbai.
अमृत काल में बदल रहे हैं अपने देश के अब हाल,